What if Godzilla was real? Imagine waking up one morning to the news that a creature the size of skyscrapers is roaming the ocean. Not a myth, not a movie monster, but a living, breathing animal we now call Godzilla. How would humanity react if such a giant truly walked the earth? Godzilla, as we know from pop culture, is often portrayed as a destructive force of nature. But if this beast was real, it wouldn't be just science fiction, it would be the ultimate challenge to civilization. The existence of a creature this large would forever change our relationship with the natural world. First, let's think about the biology. How could a living organism grow to over 100 meters tall and still function? Scientists would struggle to explain the sheer physics of such a gigantic body. The creature's skeletal structure would need to be unimaginably strong. Its muscles would have to generate power beyond any known species. Even breathing and circulating blood at that scale would defy our current understanding of biology. If Godzilla lived in the ocean, marine ecosystems would be completely disrupted. Whales, sharks, and even entire schools of fish might become prey. The food chain would collapse under the presence of such a dominant predator. On land, the situation would be even more catastrophic. Every step could flatten buildings, roads, and forests. Cities would be forced to evacuate if Godzilla approached. The global economy would immediately feel the impact. Ports and coastal cities vital to trade would become high-risk zones. Insurance companies, governments, and militaries would scramble to adjust. The military response would be overwhelming but also uncertain. Conventional weapons might not even harm such a massive creature. The world could face the reality that humanity is powerless against nature's fury. Nuclear weapons would inevitably enter the discussion. But detonating one near major populations or oceans could cause devastating side effects. The cure could be as destructive as the threat itself. Meanwhile, scientists would race to study the creature. They would want to understand its origins, biology, and behavior. Some would even argue that Godzilla must be protected as a unique species. Religions and philosophies would shift dramatically. Many would see Godzilla as a divine punishment or a sign from the heavens. Others would view it as proof that humanity is not the center of creation. Climate change debates would take on a new perspective. If a single animal could alter coastlines, destroy cities, and reshape nature, what would that mean for human survival? Godzilla would be a living reminder of our vulnerability. Media and culture would also explode with new narratives. Movies, books, and songs would capture the terror and awe of this colossal being. But the real creature would always overshadow the fictional versions. Tourism could emerge around Godzilla sightings. Some people would risk their lives to see it in person. The thrill of witnessing such a monster would attract adventurers from around the world. Yet, the risks would outweigh the rewards. One sudden movement from Godzilla could wipe out entire groups of onlookers. Governments might restrict access to areas near the creature. Ecologists would warn about irreversible damage. If Godzilla fed on whales, fish populations, or land animals, ecosystems could collapse. The balance of nature would never recover. Engineers might try to build defenses against it. Walls, barriers, or even giant robotic weapons could be developed. But every attempt would test the limits of technology. Nations could unite or fall into conflict over how to deal with Godzilla. Some might argue for cooperation to survive. Others could weaponize the monster for political gain. The scientific breakthroughs from studying such a creature could be immense. We might discover new biological processes, energy systems, or genetic adaptations. Godzilla could become the key to unlocking human advancement. But ethical questions would arise immediately. Do we attempt to kill it, contain it, or learn to coexist? Each option comes with consequences for humanity and nature alike. If Godzilla proved intelligent, the stakes would rise further. A creature that big, with awareness of human actions, could dictate the terms of our survival. It would no longer just be an animal, but a force with intent. Relocation of entire populations would become necessary. Cities near coasts might be abandoned. New inland megacities would rise to keep humanity safe. Transportation and trade routes would shift dramatically. Shipping lanes would avoid Godzilla's known territories. Global commerce could collapse under the constant threat. Technology would evolve faster than ever. Drones, satellites, and underwater sensors would track Godzilla's every move. A new branch of science kaiju studies would emerge. Children would grow up in a world where monsters are real. Stories of Godzilla would no longer be entertainment, but history lessons. Human imagination would be permanently reshaped. Relief organizations would face endless disasters. Every Godzilla sighting could mean mass evacuations. Humanitarian aid would become a permanent necessity. Some might worship Godzilla as a god of destruction. Cult movements could form around its power and presence. Belief systems would fracture under the weight of such awe. Others might see Godzilla as nature's protector. If it destroyed polluting factories or stopped overfishing, some would celebrate its actions. The line between villain and savior would blur. Ultimately, humanity's survival would depend on adaptation. We would learn to live in a world where a monster could appear at any time. Godzilla would become the shadow that shaped human destiny. So, what if Godzilla was real? It would not just be a monster, it would be a turning point for life on Earth. The question is, would we conquer the beast, or would it conquer us?